Okay, so we're going to cover a lot of ground. I'm not looking forward to it any more than you are. All right, the color black forward. Art theory, art criticism theory. Needless to say, I'm going to go all over the place, but it's all going to relate to the main thing. Duh, it's good. Okay, appealing to the average person. There was a person who recently called me a square. And the person was a very, very stupid person. And they called me a square. And I was thinking, oh, I see. Well, if you mean that I don't ride a motorcycle or have a leather jacket, and I'm not a DJ, if that is your definition of a square, then I'm a square. On the other hand, my definition of cool, if that's the word we want to use, is someone who dedicates themselves to anything completely. I give a lot of respect for that. Whether you're an archaeologist or a librarian, it's pretty cool that you get fully into whatever the hell it is that you do. Leather jackets, on the other hand, make me lose respect for a person. They even make me hate them. Nothing is uglier than someone pretending to be something they aren't. And almost everybody does this. Now let's think of the dude with the leather jacket. Just some guy that wears a leather jacket. The first thoughts that occur to me are, he's a poser, he's an idiot, he's a coward trying to be somebody else. And let me interject with a quote from the Iliad by Homer, which is a very machismo book. It's my favorite book. Achilles glared at him and answered, "Fool, prate not to me about covenants. There can be no covenants between men and lions. Wolves and lambs can never be of one mind, but hate each other out and through. Therefore there can be no understanding between you and me. Nor may there be any covenants between us, till one or other shall fall." That's the great quote. Relates slightly. And I'm saying that lambs should not wear leather jackets and ride motorcycles. Same with tattoos. I've always said people who have tattoos have they have an identity crisis. They don't know who they are. And then in terms of artists, or misusing the term artist so that you can get laid, I guess. Dudes who play guitar. I can't tell you how many people I've met where, oh, my boyfriend's great, he plays guitar. Well, we all know the dude with the guitar. He's everybody's both next door neighbors. I mean, playing guitar, it's like the first giveaway that the guy's an idiot. Just pick a different instrument, or I don't know, do something. Now, I'm making an audio book for my new book, and I'm posting it on YouTube. It's called The Color Black. And this post right here, and see, now I get to the meat and potatoes a little bit, is the foreword for the book. So this is the only thing I'm ever going to say about this stupid thing, because I hate it so much, because it took so long to write. First, I'd like to talk about bad art. So here I go off on another tangent. First, I want to talk about bad art and bad art criticism. Specifically, bad movies and bad YouTube channels. And when I say bad, I'm being brutal. It's not that they're bad. I mean, I would say that my own little thing that I'm doing right here is bad in terms of, like, it's not quality. It's just interesting or fun. But it's certainly not quality material. Now, I think 99.9% of art and art criticism is bad. And that would probably include my own... No, I already said that. But I look at my YouTube more as a diary or a place to share thoughts and my actual writing. Such as The Color Black, which I'll be posting before the end of the year. As if anybody cares. I don't care if anybody cares, though, so that's funny. That's another funny thing. Now, I look at it as a diary rather than as a career in and of itself. I would never be a full-time YouTuber. It's not worth it. I mean, I got other pots in the pan. Moving right along. Even the smartest people I meet out there in the wild, wild world, even the wittiest of them, I catch them saying stupid things. There was one YouTuber who I respected until he said this. He says, there were so many holes in the plot, it was literally Swiss cheese. Okay, so you misused the word literally. You used it to sound smart, and you failed miserably. Stop saying literally, metaphorically. It's like you ruined your whole... You were saying there were so many holes in the plot, it was like Swiss cheese. That was smart. But you had to say it was literally Swiss cheese. And then you destroyed the whole effect. Okay, and here's another big one that everybody does. Everybody. University professors do this. They say, begs the... Somebody's yelling in the hallway and it makes me really angry. Begs the question. Okay, which begs the question, and it sounds... It's used specifically to sound smart. Well, if you say that, then that begs the question. It's purely rhetorical, and it's awful. It's a misuse of... You should use multi-syllable words wisely. It's like a machine gun. You better be aiming it really well. All right, so here's the... I'll tell you the etymology. I think that's the right word of the word. Okay, but first, when people say that begs the question, they're using it as if to say that makes me wonder, or that raises the question. That's what they're trying to say, that raises the question. So you should just say that raises the question. You don't say that begs the question, and I'll tell you why later. Or the question begs to be asked. You could do that. That would work. But what begs the question actually means, the origin of it is it assumes the question. And this is a, it's not a syllogism. It's a, it's a study of argumentation. It's an argumentational, to beg the question is basically to say, God wrote the Bible. Well, how do you know that? Well, because the Bible says he did. It means when you assume the question, like, I'm right. Why are you right? Because I said I am. That's begging the question. That's exactly, literally what begging the question is. So when people say that begs the question, improperly, you end up looking like a jackass. God damn it. And then there's a counter argument where they say, well, you know, words change their meaning in time, so now begs the question means something else. No, but that's a whole phrase. I'm not on board with that, where we can just distort the original meaning of a thing just for the sake of rhetorical effect. All right, moving right along, because I could go on for a million years. And there's other popular phrases that these douchebags use all over the place. The first one is agency. That's not the first one. It's one of many. Agency. So somebody said to me like 3 years ago, it's 2018 right now. So in 2015, they says to me, you know, you have agency. You realize you have agency in this situation. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Agency? What the hell? What do you mean I have agency? I've never heard that. I'm like, what a pretentious prick. But lo and behold, 2 years later, now everybody's using the word. So it's just like the flavor of the month word. So now everybody's going to try to sound smart by saying you have agency. And then there's a YouTube guy, which I can't, it's hard for me to watch him because he always uses the word proper. So he'll say, I'm talking about Sunday proper. And when I talk about this, when I talk about Star Wars The Last Jedi, I'm talking about Jar Jar proper. I know he wasn't in the movie. Proper. And I looked that up, what that means, and it just means specifically, or mainly, or in particular. So when I say I just went home proper, that just means I specifically went home. So it's actually a superfluous word, because superfluous, it's a word that is not necessary. It doesn't need to be there. Just like superfluous. Superfluous is superfluous, actually. You don't need to say proper after you say anything. Or you could say it whenever you want, because it's just like an exclamation mark. It's really, really pretentious as hell. I'm going to take a leak, proper. What? How bitchy is that? All right, so yeah, I looked it up, and and the funny thing is, I have a friend who is a university professor, and I said to him, "Do you know what it means when somebody says proper after they say something?" And he goes, "No." This guy's up on all the phrases. He deals with the most pretentious of the people, and he doesn't even know what it means. So it's just like these words catch on, and everybody starts using them, and then they go out of fashion, just like the last rock band. And there's I don't want to mention the one dude. I don't want to mention actual other people's channels, but Victor Von Doomcock. Certain people use multisyllabic words, and they're not actually saying anything that good. And it's kind of sad when that happens, isn't it? Now, moving right along. Okay, on the topic of shitty artists, believe it or not, they exist. It very much annoys me when I'm in a bar or a nightclub and some terrible band comes on and they're playing terrible music, and some person always says, "I admire them for trying. At least they came out. At least they try. At least they..." And I disagree with this idea. At least they had the courage to come out there and do that. At least so-and-so had the courage to make a movie. No. First of all, these shitty artists, they are dilettantes, which means that they half-ass everything. They don't put any work in, and they just want to get laid. And so they go up on stage because they think they're going to get laid. They learn 3 chords, which takes them 20 minutes. And then they start writing, like, I don't know if I would call it music. They write something, and people think it's music because they don't know what music is either. And I don't admire that. I don't admire the courage to go out there and waste everybody's time. I don't think there's anything admirable about that. I wish you had not learned how to try to make music, and I wish you had just stayed home. Because again, hearkening back to what I said previously, I admire people who go full force into anything, not like half-assing so you can get laid or so you can meet a girl or you can make money. How do I feel about, moving right along, how do I feel about dilettantes, half-assers, people who don't actually work very hard and just like think they're gonna shit gold? I was very brilliant for saying this one. You weren't born stupid. It took years of laziness. So you see, anybody, as long as you're not mentally deficient, like really like vegetable, or you can get very good at anything. You can be an expert or a master at anything if you put the work in. It's all about putting the work in. It isn't. These people who are stupid, they're not just born stupid. They spent years being lazy so they could be this dumb. There was a guy named Rameau 400 years ago who destroyed music for all time. Rameau. Yeah, that's it. And a very good criticism of Rameau was written by Rousseau, who was a philosopher. And this was also like 300, 400 years ago. And what he wrote was, and you'll understand the context if you want to, he wrote, "The study of composition, music composition, which used to require 20 years, can now be completed in a couple of months. Musicians are devouring the theories of Rameau, and the number of students has multiplied. France has been inundated with bad music and bad musicians. Everybody thinks he has understood the finesses of art before having learned as much as the rudiments." All right, moving right along. I don't believe that art is a career. I don't believe anybody deserves to make a living at it, let alone make a fortune. I think art is its own reward. I think art is a luxury. Starving people in wherever, Ethiopia, they don't have the luxury of learning how to play the piano. So you're very lucky to be able to do that. It's like cultivating your taste in wine. Music, literature, it's like learning wine or developing a smell for perfume. You're cultivating your tastes and your It's a luxury. You should just be grateful to be able to do that, to be an artist or to be able to experience art. Period. There should be no feeling like I am owed a living because I wrote a great book. No, you wrote a great book because it was fun to write the great book. Now regarding popular art, Jay-Z, the pop artist. I don't know if you've heard of him because I don't know much about him except that he's like, everybody thinks he's the greatest. Jay-Z never would have been big in that. He's a rap artist, right? He would never have been big in any other time. 300 years ago, 100 years from now, when this music only has like a few years left or whatever, it'll be gone because it's just the flavor of the month, because that's how society, that's how culture, that's how everything's working right now. He'll be gone. He would never. These people, these geniuses are only geniuses. It's not enough to be a genius. You have to be a genius at the right time in order to get big. Mozart, right, one of the greatest classical composers ever, would never be able to make it in this day and age. Also, 300 years ago, there was only 2 types of music you could write, whereas now there's like a million different genres. There's no... It's all been distilled or diluted or whatever you want to call it. So what are the chances of your passion also being popular right now? They're not very... They're a bit slim. You could change your style as an artist so that you could pander to the whatever's popular. So like I could write a song in the style of Lady Gaga, hoping that that's what's in, so I could get big. But it doesn't really work that way, because it's the same as like trying to change every movie so it's like Jurassic Park or Twister or whatever. You can't just replicate that shit. You have to, like, you know what I'm saying. Furthermore, money and art are mutually exclusive. If you're chasing money, down the road, you're not going to have great art. And if you're chasing art, then down the road, you're going to have no money. It's unfortunate that life works this way, but it does. It's like if you want to have a wild girlfriend who, blows your mind, well, then you also have to deal with the fact that she's not going to be an angel either. So you pick one, and you got to like suffer from the crap that you don't get, right? You pick a square, you don't get a circle. Also, money. Yeah, another thing is money will always make you compromise. So you'll always say, okay, yeah, sure, I'll sing a duet with Britney Spears if I get $1 million, and it just gets worse. A couple things, anecdotes about celebrities that really pissed me off recently was Michael Caine, the actor Michael Caine. Somebody asked him, what about that movie you made? It really sucked, wasn't it? That movie really sucked, didn't it? And Michael Caine, this is like 20 years ago, this quote, and Michael Caine goes, well, I wouldn't know, I've never watched it, but I'll tell you one thing, it bought me a mansion. Boom. So, in other words, you sold your services as an actor in order to buy a house. So it wasn't about the quality of the movie. You didn't give 2 shits about the quality of the movie. And that's okay. But you can't come back then and say, I'm an artist. Because being an artist is about not compromising. It's about doing the best thing you can possibly do. So you're a shill. Like you said, okay, you'll buy me a mansion? Okay, I'll do your shitty movie. It sounds like it sounds black and white, but it really is black and white sometimes. And I hate to say it, but the Kiefer Sutherland quote from the first season of 24 was one of the most inspirational things I ever heard. He said, you know what the difference is between a good person and a bad person? A bad person never started out as a good person. A bad person didn't start out as a bad person. He was a good person originally. And he was offered a compromise, like the tiniest little compromise. Will you do this? And then he did that, and that compromise led to another compromise, which led to another compromise, which led to another compromise, which led to another compromise. And before he knew it, he was bad. So you have to be very careful when you compromise these things, like Morgan Freeman doing. We're on to Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman has enough money for the rest of his life. He's done. He doesn't have to kiss ass anymore. He doesn't have to. He has enough fuck you money. The term fuck you money. He has enough fuck you money. He will never have to kiss anybody's ass again. But 2 years ago, he's doing American Express card commercials. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, you don't need to do that. And it drives home the fact that these people are more about money. This was never art. So these people don't have integrity if they're doing American Express card commercials, or they're choosing their movies according to the mansion they have to buy this year or next year, or they want to renovate their swimming pool. Now let's figure out what I meant when I wrote what I'm about to read. I would be willing, regarding popular art, I would be willing to sell out a bit to make some money. Okay? I'm not above being a sellout or a whore or whatever. I'm not. So when I put people down and say they're dumb, they're stupid, I'm saying I'm included there in as much as I participate in the same thing. And I probably would be willing to participate in much of it. It's sad. Now, however, as an aspiring writer, I could never make movies. Like, I could never be a screenwriter or a director. And the reason is that I don't care about visuals. Anybody can get good at anything. I already said that. But I don't care to get good at visuals. And I've been watching Red Letter Media quite a lot for the last few months. And they made 2 movies. They made a movie called Space Cop and Feeding Frenzy. And they, as filmmakers, have the same problem. They also don't care enough to film their films very well. Their timing was way off. They don't see visually, so I don't even know why they bother. And also, I noticed that Mike Stoklosa, the main guy from Red Letter Media, he nods his head incessantly while he's being filmed. And like, that's the first thing that you learn as an actor. And I'm not even an actor, but even I know that. You don't nod your head all the time when you're being filmed. It's the first thing every radio, weatherman, news reporter knows. When you're being filmed, you don't nod your head all the time. It's a novice mistake. Regarding screenplay writing, I've tried to write screenplays, and I can't do it. Because screenplays need to be visual. You have to write visual, whatever. And I had a friend who wrote screenplays, made a living at it. And I had to go to his house one time where him and a friend were trying to create ideas for another screenplay. And they weren't talking about ideas for stories. They were talking about scenarios. Like, okay, how about this? There's a guy that robs a bank, but there's a chicken in the bank vault. What do we do? And that's how they start their ideas for stories. Which could not be more shallow, and it's not a story, it's a scenario. So they start with scenarios rather than ideas. And then, so they asked me to come up with one, and I go, okay, so, as a joke, I just said, okay, so there's a walrus on top of a train. And I meant that as a joke to show them how dumb this whole process, this whole exercise is. And they immediately just go, that's amazing, that's so great. And I'm thinking, wow, okay. Screenplays are not written to be read. That's another problem I have, is that screenplays are written to be filmed. So even if I wrote the greatest screenplay of all time, it won't be filmed that way. It won't be received that way. Screenplays are auditions for the movie. So why would you do it unless you're willing to have all your best shit just like gone or misunderstood? Whereas a novel, which is where I'm going to stake my claim, because when it comes to that shit, is exactly what you wanted it to be. Nothing has changed. And that same fellow that I knew who earned a living writing screenplays, he wrote one screenplay that we'll call it The Mexican. And his agent and the filmmakers said, can we change it to The American and we'll just have it instead? And my friend was like, I called it The Mexican. It's about a Mexican. How can you change it to The American? You're taking the whole thing out. But he allowed them to do it, and blah, blah, blah. And this same person, he told me that he had 5 screenplays he wrote. They were all optioned by film companies. And the idea is they buy the rights to your screenplay for 5 years or whatever, 2 years. So you get $1,000 a year from them as long as they've optioned it. But they might not make it. They probably won't make it. And very often, their intention was not to make it, but they thought it was good, so they want to prevent other companies from making it. So, at the end of the day, this friend of mine, former friend, he has 5 screenplays he's written that are locked in closets because they're optioned, so nobody gets to read them. So that basically you're writing something so that somebody can pay you money so that nobody else can read it. And that's not what I signed up for. Furthermore, my writing is so nuanced and idiosyncratic, meaning it's so specifically weird that only I could make it palatable. Only I could make it appetizing to anyone. And even I probably couldn't do it. Many of the people who have read my previous stuff have said that they thought it was awful at first until they understood that I was intentionally being awful, and then they really liked it. But that's not realistic in terms of, 100 IQ people. So sadly, I have kind of given up relating to the masses. I don't know what people like. They like the Spice Girls. They like Family Guy. They like Quentin Tarantino. I don't even like Martin Scorsese. So, I'm out of touch. And I'm okay with that. I still think I'm right, but whatever. The things I do like, everyone else hates. That's another thing that really annoys me, especially when it comes to horror movies. There was a screenwriting guru named Robert McKee, and he was reviewing certain directors and screenwriters, and he said about Spielberg has incredible ability, but he has nothing to say. And took the words right out of my mouth. And that's how I feel about most of these great directors. I don't think Martin Scorsese has anything to say. He just captures moments, but he doesn't actually... It's not art. It's just... I don't know what it is. It's just like a documentary or something. Moving right along on the topic of art criticism. First, Red Letter Media. They're a good one. They're a good one to single out. They call people ugly and fat on the regular. So I think it's okay to call people fat and ugly if they're putting themselves on every poster that you have to look at when you walk down the street. If you hide your face from the world, it's okay to go around calling people fat and ugly as long as you hide your own face, as long as you know that you're fat and ugly. But the people who put their ugly faces in Times Square in a big 20 by 20 foot ad, they get no mercy. Nicolas Cage is the ugliest person who ever lived, and I wish I didn't have to see his face, but I'm forced to because if you're ugly, just don't do it. I think I'm ugly, and I'm not doing videos, so I can call everybody in the world fat and ugly. Because I'm not subjecting them to my own ugly and fat face. If you can only criticize without creating, then you are just a critic. And that's the thing, that's in regards to Red Letter Media. They make movies, but their movies are shit. And I don't mean that really to put them down, because they're amazing at what they do, which is criticizing movies. But their own movies are not good. So you're not a movie maker, you're a critic. And why would you even try? They should specialize in movie reviews. Now, regarding criticism, art criticism in particular, okay, you have to recognize right away that art is not subjective. If it was subjective, then there would be no point, or there would be no need for criticism, art criticism. You couldn't say that movie sucked because it's all subjective, so nobody would ever be able to talk about a movie, period, whether it was good or whether it was bad. So as soon as you say this movie sucked, you're engaging in art criticism, is basically where I'm going. And the whole idea that you shouldn't judge a work of art is erroneous. To say that every art is equally good, it's all subjective, so, it's all the same. So if somebody sneezes on a paper towel, that work of art is just as good as something Picasso did. And there's a great quote by Nietzsche, and I don't share these quotes in order to sound intelligent as much as I just want to share these great quotes. Nietzsche, quote, "And ye tell me, friends, that there is to be no dispute about taste and tasting, but all life is a dispute about taste and tasting. Taste, that is weight at the same time, and scales and weigher, and alas for every living thing that would live without dispute about weight and scales and weigher." Art criticism. Art critics are custodians, in my opinion, from what I've gathered. Art criticism is an important vocation. They're basically the custodians of art. They protect art from becoming diluted and crappy. They protect art from becoming like Britney Spears. Without art critics, you would not have anybody to tell you, "Hey kid, you shouldn't be listening to Britney Spears. She's shit." If it wasn't for art critics, everybody would just be listening to Britney Spears. So it's the second most noble vocation after artist, in my opinion, and they deserve a lot of respect. Somebody who can do art criticism is doing a great thing for the world. Philosophy itself began as art criticism, some might say. When Socrates wanted to kick the artists out of the Republic, he was basically doing art criticism, saying that's not good. And the irony, the irony of the whole thing is that Socrates himself was creating art. Because if you read the Republic, or anything by Socrates, by Plato, it's the most artistic of writing of any philosopher. So the argument is that Socrates would have to kick himself out. So basically the idea also is that philosophy is like art's younger brother, angry younger little brother that's jealous that art's getting all the attention. So philosophy began, they wanted to bring down art a little bit. But it's okay, because you should be bringing art down, especially when it's shit. Now, I wrote a book called The Color Black. It's done. It took 4 years to write, and it was a nightmare. I don't know if it's good or not. I just know it's done. I think it's probably great. But by the time I get done with that thing, after I spend 4 years on it, you can bet I hate it. And some of my other stuff is on this channel of mine. I wrote another book called Why Can't I Be Normal? Another one called... But Why Can't I Be Normal? That audiobook is on here. Also, I have a movie on here, The Most Famous Celebrity of All Time, and a play, Death the Movie. So I'm making my new book, The Color Black, into a YouTube audiobook because it's easy and I want to get it out of my life as soon as possible. Now back to back and forth regarding art criticism and art theory, art criticism theory and art theory. Talking about your own work, in terms of that, there's two art criticism theories. One of them is called the intentional fallacy. The other one is called the effective fallacy. So the intentional fallacy is the idea that in order to criticize, in order to judge a piece of art, you have to know what the artist was thinking. So in order to understand what Britney Spears was doing with her song, you have to interview her and talk about, know about her family life and all that crap in order to understand why it's a good piece of art or why it's good. That's the intentional fallacy. The idea that the intention of the artist has some bearing on the overall piece of art when you're critiquing it. The other one is called the effective fallacy. The idea being that if Britney Spears sold 100 million records, that must mean she's good. Or the fact that Mozart is known 400 years after his death, that means he's good. The idea that the effect of your art has some bearing on the critique you do of it. And it doesn't. And I subscribe to both of those ideas. I don't want to know what the artist was thinking, and I don't care how popular he is. I want to be able to experience it for whatever the hell it was, and make my own decisions. Or if you're going to lecture me about that work of art, at least be pointing to what's in the picture. Don't be pointing about what's behind the picture. Yeah, so I've edited my book 1,000 times, and I know it's good, but I hate it. So, gone. I'm probably going to release the audiobook before Christmas. Again, this is like a diary, this whole stupid channel, so it's just good to know. It took me 4 years to write. What's it about? It's an analogy for a world that doesn't value art or other such abstract things. The root of all evil comes from the idea that black is a color. That was what prompted the whole thing. And incidentally, art is already abstract without having a subgenre called abstract. You don't need to have abstract art. Art is fundamentally abstract. So at the end of the day, with this book of mine, I don't really care if it's good. I just care that it's what I wanted it to be. So it is what I wanted it to be, even if it's bad. I'm happy that I saw it through and finished it. And that's kind of got it. Okay, so I created my own art theory. My own theory of art criticism, I guess would be more precise. So my idea is that art is idealism. And again, I said that previously. Art is idealism. Other things are realism. Art is not realism. It's idealism. Aristotle had an idea that things like art are abstract and universal, whereas other things like learning how to pound a nail into a wall, that's concrete and particular. So you can get a job screwing a screw in at a factory because you know where to screw the screw in. It's concrete because you're literally doing something that has a benefit. It's particular because you can only use it for that thing. If you know how to screw some kind of screw in somewhere, that's not necessarily going to help you anywhere else. It's just good for that. Many people have jobs like that. Whereas art is abstract, meaning that it doesn't really do anything. It's not even really there. You can't even say you're doing anything if you write a poem. It's nothing. But it's universal in a sense that if you get very good at something, like, anything, you take it to the level of art when you get good at it. And it's universal in a sense that it enriches everything in your life. So you can use it everywhere. I forget, I lost something there. I lost a train of thought. So my theory of art criticism is that art is beauty communicated. Now this is where it gets really heavy. Art is beauty communicated. Now, what's beauty? Beauty is form. Communication is content. So, I gotta take a deep breath. So, we take the Mona Lisa, for example. The Mona Lisa is, the communication comes from the content. The content is, it's just a woman. It's a painting of a woman. So it communicates because everybody can see it's a painting of a woman. Now you can have communication. So the content, yeah, that's enough for that. And the form is how intricately he painted it. And that's where the beauty comes in. So, to take it a step further, simple content, complex form. That's my little formula. The content, being the subject matter, be it the Mona Lisa, should be as simple as possible. It's a painting of a woman. That should be very simple. There should be nothing complicated going on there. So the content should be as simple as possible. The form, however, should be as complex as possible. And that's why the Mona Lisa is great, because the form that Leonardo DiCaprio is using is complex. It's incredibly complex. And that, again, going back to communication and beauty, that's where the beauty is. The beauty is in how complex he made it with his brush strokes or whatever. Communication was optimized by simple painting of a woman, and beauty was maximized by having the form be as complex as possible. So I guess that's all I have to say about art criticism. I'll ever have to say about art criticism. I don't ever want to talk about it to anybody because it's a waste of my time, because people don't pay attention. It's a waste of their time too, I suppose. And I just want to get this book out of my life, and I'm making headway just by doing this, so that's great. And then we just move on to greener pastures. Thank you.